Ipswich versus Manchester United is this afternoon, and Miguel Pereira wrote a book called Bring Me That Horizon, A Journey to the Soul of Portuguese Football. So what will Ruben Amorim bring to Manchester United? Miguel is here to tell us. Good morning, Miguel.
Hello, Shaun. Hello, Henry. How are you?
Morning.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. So Ruben Amorim, tell me what you made of him when you first came across him and what you make of him now.
Well, he has become a sort of surprise for Portuguese football forwards because basically he was regarded as an international player, respected, but the way his career just skyrocketed since the day he arrived at Sporting was totally unexpected. And he done it because the things he's going to bring to Man United surely was the same things that brought him to winning things at Sporting, the belief in himself. He's very capable to know his potential. He's very able to analyze what he can improve to a football club. And it was a surprise for everyone in Portugal that he didn't went to the Premier League last summer. He had conversations with Liverpool, with West Ham. He decided to stay for another year, probably waiting for a better opportunity. And now it arose at Old Trafford, and I think he will manage the job quite well.
But did people have suspicions of him because he was seen as a Benfica man?
Well, no, essentially he is a Benfica man and probably will want to coach Benfica someday. But when he was signed by Sporting, he was signed by one of his best friends, who is now also the future Man City sports director, Hugo Viana. So there was already a personal
we remember
link
him
there.
at Newcastle United-ish.
Yeah, yeah, true. And basically there was already a personal link between the two. And also Sporting moved before Benfica could in the summer. That's why they signed him, paying the release clause in winter. And it went very well for them because Sporting is a very schizophrenic football club.
Miguel, there's a lot of focus on his tactics and 3-4-2-1 and 3-4-3. I mean, they are fairly different. I mean, if you're going to play two tens behind a nine effectively, which system does he prefer? Because one might favour a Rashford and one might favour more a Mason Mount.
Yeah, he usually goes for a 3-4-2-1, and the two behind the strikers are very different football players. You will probably want two different profiles. He had in Sporting in Pedro Gonçalves a player more similar to Bruno Fernandez or to Mason Mount, a player who is capable of going back, creating gameplay with midfield, and then he wants a player which is more like an inverted winger. And that could be Diallo, that could be Garnacho, player like even Rashford eventually, players that go inside the box and take advantage of the spaces created by the number 9.
I think that's the most fascinating thing about the team this afternoon. We feel there's about 6 players to play in those two positions, and I take what you're saying, Miguel, but nobody truly knows what he's got up his sleeve for those two positions. We think it might be a rejuvenation for Mason Mount, but there's a lot of players vying for those positions.
Yeah, basically, I think the key will be where he will put Bruno Fernandez because it's the heartbeat of the team, has been for so long. And he's a player that is capable to play both in that position behind the striker, and he does it really well. But at the same time, he needs a midfielder to play alongside a player like Ugarte, who will be having a more defensive mindset to be able to create and dictate play, but at the same time have the stamina to move around the pitch, something that, for instance, Eriksen doesn't have and doesn't fit quite well in this system of play. So he can play with Fernandez in the middle and then Mount in front of him, or he can go at the first with Fernandez behind the striker until he creates the dynamics that he needs to improve collectively the team and adding some players from the squad to the rotating starting 11.
But he wouldn't drop Bruno back alongside Ugarte because he's got Mainu or Casemiro, who you presume will be in there.
Yeah, I think he sees Casemiro in the same role as Ugarte, to play as more defensive mindset, and then he likes the other midfielder to be a little bit more creative. And in that case, you have a lack of players who have both the stamina and the creativity to play there. Mainu obviously will be the front runner for that position and will play a lot and will develop a lot under him, because one of the traits that Amorim has shown to be very good at is to develop youth team players. He has done so in Sporting with several ones, including, for instance, Mateus Nunes, who played in that position and now is in Manchester City and evolved greatly under him. And so Mainu will be one of the players that probably will grow up more with him at Old Trafford.
A lot of the quotes that came out of his press conference on Friday were, "I am the smiling one, but I can also be ruthless." Is that how you found him?
Yeah, he's a guy that trusts really in himself and that kind of self-awareness of his potential. And he, when he arrives at Manchester, he really doesn't want to be another Solskjaer or another Ten Hag or another Van Gaal. He wants to be Alex Ferguson for Alex Ferguson the same way that Alex Ferguson was for Simap Busby. He wants to be the man that starts something new, and he trusts himself to do that. And he doesn't want to replicate mistakes from the past. He wants to create his own legacy. That's why he will implement his ideas from day one. He doesn't want to enter smoothly in the club. He is aware that they were after him for a reason, and the reason is that his model has worked, albeit in a smaller league like Portugal, but Alex Ferguson also came from Aberdeen, a club that defied the power of the Big Two of Glasgow and won titles in Scotland back in the early 80s. So he wants to recreate that. Also, he knows that he doesn't have the same amount of time that Ferguson had in the 80s. Football has changed completely from those days, but he wants to bring himself to the football club like a new kind of leadership, more apt to the modern game, and more similar in traits to Jurgen Klopp perhaps than to Alex Ferguson. Very distant from Jose Mourinho, who has been compared to, but they have quite different styles, both in communicating and also in leadership within the squad. But he wants to be his own man, really.
How is it viewed in Portugal, that sort of relationship, bit of a relationship with Mourinho, and how do you compare the two managers in Portugal? Okay, maybe Mourinho is a bit past his best, but for some time he was the best manager in the world. I mean, is Amorim up there with him?
No. He expects to be. People expect him to be very good, but Mourinho was one of a kind. I think the impact that he had not only in Portuguese football, but essentially in the game in the 2000s, it will be very hard to replicate for any manager coming from Portugal, because like I said before, the game changed so much. Amorim didn't win an European competition before arriving to the Premier League, and Mourinho came to Chelsea with a Champions League and a UEFA Cup win under his belt. And the difference is that Mourinho started a trend. It became like the sort of patron saint for Portuguese managers, and Amorim is following that trend, but is one of several managers who have impressed over the years and then moved to bigger leagues. The greatest difference is Amorim is younger than most and directly moved to one of the biggest clubs in the world instead of going step by step like other managers have done in the past.
I'm still slightly intrigued by the Mourinho feeling in Portugal. I know this is not about Amorim, but just about Mourinho himself. Is he still highly revered in Portugal, and is he still seen as the future Portuguese national boss?
Yes, he is highly revered because Portugal has also that nostalgic identity about it. So everyone who has been an idol in the past remains an idol in the present. It happens with Cristiano Ronaldo as well. People still regard him as one of the best players in the world, even if he has passed his time for quite a few seasons by now. And of course, everybody expects Mourinho to pick up the national side eventually. They're thinking past 2026 with eyes on the World Cup in 2030 that will be set on Portuguese soil, as well as Spain and Morocco. So that will be probably a good opportunity, although people who are within the game understand that Mourinho is out of date in so many ways. But at the same time, the respect that he has gained over the years gave him a situation that if he wants to be a national manager, he will.
Miguel, there are 10.5 million people in Portugal, so just slightly bigger than London. What is it? And you've now got as many there are as many Portuguese coaches in the Premier League as English. What is it about the Portuguese footballing culture? Do you spend your whole life just sort of talking football, talking tactics? Is everyone a sort of a wannabe manager? What is it about your great footballing country?
I think it's actually the way around. Portugal has an advantage to other football leagues in continental Europe that focus too much on tactics. They focus too much on systems. The Dutch school, the Italian school, even the Spanish school over the last 20 years have focused greatly on the tactical aspect of the game. And Portuguese managers work more in the management as a complete equation. They think about man management, they think about the way they can communicate with fans, clubs. They are more an all-round sort of leaders. And that came with the necessity that Portugal has as a poor country from periphery in Europe, that they need to adapt. And they need to be prepared to different scenarios. That's why Portuguese coaches are triumphing not only in Europe, but around the world. You have a back-to-back winning Libertadores Cup for Abel in Brazil. You had Portuguese managers winning Champions League in Africa and Asia. They always have adapted to whatever they are. And that ability to adapt and to communicate, to express well their ideas, it's the only country in Europe that doesn't that it subtitles everything. So basically, people grow up learning different languages very young. So when they go to different countries, they know how to express in the local language, something Italians or Spanish or Germans don't. So basically, that gives them an advantage when they move to different countries, different realities, to mingle within the local community and to bring also their persona to their projects.
Miguel, I dare say that's the theme of your book, which I mentioned at the start, called Bring Me That Horizon, A Journey to the Soul of Portuguese Football. What you say there, is that the essence of a Portuguese football fan?
Yeah, essentially. Basically, it's a country that, like I said before, since its inception, surrounded by a much powerful neighbor as is Spain, always wanted to move forward, but had to find a way to do it. So basically, football players in Portugal evolved because they were never trained to be that kind of player. Football clubs never created a school for youth academies the way, for instance, La Masia exists in Spain. They always favor diversity. That's why you have different sort of players generationally. They are not only just wingers or just creative midfielders or defenders, managers as well. And also it is a country that loves football but loves more winning than football. It's not a sport-loving country, as one may say. It's not a country where the community is important. That's why there are only 3 big clubs really in the nation that gather around 80 to 90% of full support. Then the other smaller countries, all smaller clubs, have much less support because people want to win. And they want to win because basically, emotionally, they are very poor, and football is one of the few things that can bring them joy in the weekend. So basically, they want to create that sense of, at least for once in a week, they are happy with their lives. And this is also part of the backbone of the game in Portugal.
Well, if Ruben Amorim does well at Man United, I'm sure that'll do wonders for book sales, Miguel. Miguel Pereira's book, Bring Me That Horizon, A Journey to the Soul of Portuguese Football, is available. Miguel, thank you very much.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.